thing I want to kind of cover is just really what are the nutrition myths that surround protein. One of the biggest misconceptions, particularly around young athletes today, is they think if they eat more protein, just by eating more protein, they're going to build more muscle. And this is completely false. We do need that stimulus of strength training. We need that environment that will help create that stimulus, followed by consuming adequate amounts of protein throughout the day. Another myth is you can only get good sources of protein by eating meat. And there's a lot of vegetarians that are very lean, that perform at a high level, and you don't need to just eat animal-based protein in order to get protein. Yes, that they do have some of your best sources of protein, but those are not by far always the best options that you can consume, and you don't have to just eat animal-based proteins. If you are a vegetarian, there's plenty of options for you to choose outside of an animal-based protein. Another is following a vegan or vegetarian-based diet will make it difficult for me to build muscle, and this is actually, again, not the case. There are a lot of opportunity to get protein outside of just animal-based diets. Things like beans, nuts, peanut butter, quinoa, soy, tofu. There's a lot of options that we can consume outside of animal-based options and still be very effective. It's also best to get your protein all in 1 or 2 meals. That's a big misconception as well. It's really best, based on the science and literature, to spread your protein out throughout the day. The best way to maximize or at least have what's called a net protein balance at the end of the day in accrue muscle tissue is to make sure we spread protein out. So let's just say you need 200 grams. You want to make sure you consume maybe 5 or 6 meals with 40 to 50 grams each, or 35 to 40 grams each. That way we're not trying to consume that all in one, because it's going to be very difficult for the body to break that down. Also, there's another misconception where people think if you eat too much protein, it's just going to harm your kidneys. If you have issues with kidney failure or have some kidney problems or a history of kidney disease, you definitely want to check with your doctor first. But if you have healthy kidneys, adding extra protein is not going to cause any harm, and there's a ton of literature to support that. And finally, more protein equals more energy. This is not necessarily the case. If your body is using protein for energy, more than likely you're following a very low carbohydrate diet, and this is something that is not advocated for wrestlers, especially. Because the lack of energy. If anything that increases our energy, it's making sure we get good carbohydrate intake to support the amount of activity our body's going to do. All right, so let's talk about the function of protein. What does protein do? It's a pretty versatile nutrient. It has a lot of different functions. We'll talk about a couple just right here that is really beneficial, especially when it comes to the athlete. Number one, repair and maintenance. So great foundation for skin, hair, muscles, and organs. It's all of those are made up of protein. Young athletes need more than adults, especially during our growing phases. So if you're a 13 or 14-year-old wrestler, this is, we'll talk about how much protein our body needs, but this is where we need a little bit more protein because we need that for growth. As you can see, things like skin, hair, and muscles, particularly our muscles and organs, are better off when we get adequate protein. And of course, connective tissue repair and recovery. So, when we have these minor tears or injuries or muscle soreness, protein is extremely beneficial post-workout to really help with the muscle recovery process and also the connective tissue repair process. So we want to make sure after a workout, within 20-30 minutes, we get protein immediately after, because that increases muscle protein synthesis or the rebuilding of muscle tissue. Also with hormone balance, things like insulin. People think of insulin as only something that you take to lower your blood sugar. It's also an anabolic hormone, and it's a protein that regulates blood sugar, so that is true, but it also helps shuttle protein to the muscle for recovery. So when you consume protein after a workout, you want that with a source of carbohydrate. You just don't want to consume a scoop of protein powder with water. You want that with maybe some milk, some fruit, some sort of carbohydrate source. That's going to increase protein uptake to that muscle tissue and help that muscle tissue recover faster. Also, immune health. One of the things people don't realize is when we eat adequate protein, it helps with our immune system. There are antibodies that are protein and a component of our immune system, which helps fight infections that are caused by bacteria and viruses. So when we train a lot, we're more susceptible to getting sick. So if we're not eating a really good diet, of course, of lean protein, fruits and veggies will also help reduce inflammation, then we put ourselves at risk and we become more susceptible to getting sick. So good protein intake produces more antibodies, keeping our immune system strong. And finally, metabolism and body composition. One of the goals of a wrestler is to get leaner, to get stronger. The benefit of having a source of protein at all your meals, number one, is the thermic effect of food. It takes 30% more energy for the body to break down protein than it does carbs and fat, so it improves the metabolism. It increases our metabolic rate. It also keeps you full a little bit longer. So if you're trying to manage your weight, it's important to have foods that control blood sugar, that make sure that if we eat in an hour and 2 hours later, an hour later, we're not hungry again because we're not eating the right balance of nutrients. So this is where protein comes in, and it's important to have at all of the meals. So let's really talk about, as you've seen in the last couple of presentations on fat and carbohydrate, we kind of give you guys at least a little bit of understanding of what's good protein. And as we've done it before, what's state championship protein, like we did with carbs and fat. These are going to be things that are good lean sources: chicken breast, turkey breast, deli, ham, lean ground beef or extra lean ground beef, certain cuts of beef like sirloin, filet, eye of round, and as you can see, fish and whey protein. And so there's some animal-based options. There are some vegetarian-based options as well that we can have. What I would consider Mr. Playoff protein, these are protein-based sources that are a lot higher in fat. These are things that take a long time to digest. So you combine good protein and high fat, then it's going to take a long time to digest. You want to avoid these 8 to 10 hours before a match, especially right before a match, because they're going to make you feel really, really sluggish, and you're not going to feel very good. So these are fast food hamburgers and fried foods like fried chicken, fast food beef or dark meat chicken. Things that are going to have considerably higher amounts of fat and take a long time to digest. All right, so the big question we get is how much protein? And, for the rest, it's really, we like to give a range. Just to say, eat this is not going to apply to every single person. But a good range is about 0.7 to 1 gram per pound. A lot of things are going to really determine. I like to use the upper end when trying to cut weight and hold on to muscle tissue, just because you're probably going to be cutting carbs a little bit in those areas when we're trying to drop weight. We're cutting calories, but we want to make sure protein stays adequate so we don't lose muscle tissue during that time. So let's just say you're 150 pounds, you multiply that times 0.7 or 1, that's going to be a range between 105 and 150 grams of protein. One way to look at this is for every ounce, so you're like, well, how much is that? For every ounce of protein is 7 grams. So 1 ounce of protein is 7 grams. A deck of cards would be about 3 ounces. That's about 21 grams of protein. All right, so I get a lot of questions about protein powder. It's like, so how do we know what's a good powder? Should I use that? What's the function of this? Sometimes this is a convenient way to get protein, and it's something that can be done. It's not really that much different than, eating a piece of chicken or fish or steak. It's in a powdered form. It's just like milk, or, it comes from cheese. So we have whey protein, fast-acting protein that raises the blood amino acid levels pretty quickly, that lasts for about 3 to 4 hours. This is really great to have whey protein immediately after a workout, stimulating muscle protein synthesis pretty quickly. Some athletes I know like to use casein protein, and that's completely fine. This is a slower-acting protein and elevates the blood amino acid levels for up to 6 hours. I would typically recommend a casein or maybe even a whey casein blend before bed. You can use a blend after a workout, and you can use a whey after a workout. It's all going to work. Maybe whey's going to be a little bit more effective, but overall, if you're having, either one of these proteins after workout, they're both going to stimulate muscle protein synthesis and help repair. Now, the big question too is, well, how much is the effective after a workout? Well, the science has shown us that around 20 to 30 grams is sufficient to optimize muscle protein synthesis, basically repairing that muscle tissue. That's about a scoop to a scoop and a half of protein powder. That should be plenty enough. You mix that with with milk, you're adding more protein. So if you want to do a scoop with a little bit of milk, you're going to get 28, 30 grams of protein in that serving, and that should be pretty beneficial when it comes to maximizing muscle recovery. Remember, adding carbohydrates to that is good. One thing I like to do is I like to take vanilla protein for my athletes and mix it with cherry juice. The cherry juice has a good anti-inflammatory effect. You get some carbs, maybe with a piece of fruit, and then also a scoop of protein powder. All right, so one of the things we want to discuss too is when you're choosing a protein powder, you want to make sure it's third-party tested. You just don't want to choose any protein powder you buy off the shelf, because it becomes pretty cheap and you're not getting good quality protein. So, number one, 25% of protein powders that were tested by a third-party company contain steroids, and that's when they looked at 58 different protein powders. 11% had stimulants on them not listed on the label, or in them not listed on the label. So, I'm a big fan of using the NSF Sport or NSF app, as well as their website. If you go to nsfsport.com, you can see the arrow there that says you click on certified products. And from there, you would click on protein. They have many other options, from multivitamins to fish oil, but we're just talking about protein right now. So you'd click on protein, or bring that arrow down to click on protein. And then this is just the first part of the page, and you'll see a ton of different options as you scroll down You won't be able to scroll down here, but on their website, you can scroll down and see all the different brands, the lot numbers, the company, and who the contact person would be if you have questions about that product. So it's important, especially if collegiate athletes and professional athletes, they use NSF for Sports certified products. What that means is these products have no banned substances. They've been third-party tested, they've been analyzed by a lab, and it helps them stay clean and in the game so they don't lose a year of eligibility at the collegiate level or